Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Allie, and today we are going to be doing another true crime video. This case has been on my mind forever. I've been wanting to do this case forever, and it just so happened that this year this case had some, I don't want to say it had new developments, but it got reopened. So I feel like it's like the perfect time to talk about it. And as you guys know, the reason that I even do you may not know, the reason that I even do these videos, I don't just want to like senselessly talk about death. I like to focus on specifically unsolved crime cases or unsolved murders and things like that, missing people, because I feel like the whole goal of these, at least in my case, is so it's if one more person has eyes on it, then that means that either one more person can fight for accountability, or it has one more set of eyes on it. And that's what it's all about, because in my opinion it should be all about either bringing these people home or bringing these people justice. So today we are going to be talking about Kendrick Johnson. This case started getting a lot of attention back in March on TikTok. And I will say that this case is kind of weird at the moment because it's kind of turned into like this huge like circus of like misinformation. So I'm going to try my hardest not to focus on that. And the reason that this case became popular again is because there was a supposed confession. But since that has still kind of been unfounded, I don't necessarily want to like dive into that. And I will say that in a case like this, I think you are perfectly allowed to question the way in which a family has handled certain things, but at the same time, or be critical of it. But at the same time, we have to remember that like everyone grieves in a certain way. And I'm someone that fully believes that sometimes families just have intuition that like we don't have. And so it's not our job to say that the family should have handled it this way or this way or this way, especially if you're coming from a place where like you have no idea what it's like to lose a family member in this way. It's not up to you to decide. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. If you like videos like this, please like, I'm not wearing earrings and I feel like I should be. It's fine. It's not about how I look. It's about Kendrick. So, like I said, we are going to be talking about Kendrick Johnson. I do have a script and I'm going to try not to like look at it too heavily. On January 10th, 2013, Jacqueline Johnson called the police to report her son as missing. He was expected to be home later that evening of January 10th because he had a basketball game that evening and he was expected to be home right after the basketball game, but he never came home. The next day on January 11th, Jacqueline went to the school to let them know that he was missing and that he was supposed to go to this basketball game, but he never came home. He never showed up at home after the game. This was around the time where students were just getting back from spring break on the 9th. And this is important to note because of the way that the gym was set up, which I'll get to in a minute. But on January 10th, Kendrick is seen on security footage going into the gym, but he is never seen alive again. He's never seen coming out of the gym. He's just seen going in. I think it was about, don't know exactly what time it was. I think it was about 1 p.m. But like I said, he was never seen coming out again. I said it's important to note that the students had just gotten back from spring break because there were wrestling mats that were sitting like up in the gym. And the reason that they were in the place that they were was, I guess, because of the break. I don't know if they were always like this or what, but it just seemed that that was like an important thing to note. And at this particular school, I didn't even get into like the background, and I probably should have, but we just jumped right in. Let me double check what school he was from. Okay, it was Lowndes High School in Valdosta, Georgia, Southern Georgia. It's not very big. Doesn't say like where it's near. Okay, so Lowndes High School is the name of the high school. But this school required locker fees for gym lockers. So as a way to get around it, students would commonly hide their shoes and different things in these mats in order to avoid paying these fees. And so it is presumed, because of the timing, that Kendrick was going into the gym in order to retrieve shoes that he shared with another student. But like I said, he was never seen again. On January 11th, he was found by other students, and he was stuck inside one of the mats. The mat was vertical, and he was stuck upside down inside a mat with his shoes off. So quite quickly, the police reported to the scene and just deemed the whole thing an accident. So it was hypothesized that because of the height and width of the mat, that Kendrick had, for whatever reason, decided to go in from the top and go down to get shoes that were hidden inside the mat. The shoes were found inside the mat, the shoes that he was going to retrieve. And he wiggled his way in and then couldn't get out because of the width of his shoulders. And he ultimately died of asphyxiation. But like I said, the death was ruled an accident very, very quickly by the police. The parents were completely dissatisfied with this hypothesis. The width of the mat was reported as 3 feet wide, but that was from side to side. But it's important to note that the actual opening of the mat was only about 14 inches, and Johnson's width of his shoulders measured to be about 17 inches. So you could hypothesize that if he stuck one arm like this, that would be the way that he would have gotten stuck. But does this change the width that much? I don't think so. I don't think it changes the width of your shoulders that much. So I don't see how someone that's 17 inches wide could fit into a hole that's 14 inches wide. That's inconsistent to me, in my personal opinion. And it's too tight of a space for him to just fall. Like, whatever he was doing, he had to be like, if this is the truth, he had to be like wiggling himself into it in order to be as deep inside as he was. The weirdest thing to me is this school had a total of 3,000 students in the school. And you would think that in a school that large, how did they not hear him scream? How did they not notice that he didn't show up to weightlifting class and think to go look for him then? Why wasn't his mom contacted if they took attendance and noticed that he was absent from that period? Why was no one contacted? Why was no one looking for Kendrick? That's the part that really doesn't add up to me. Why were they not looking for him? Why was a student just allowed to be missing for the whole day? And especially considering the fact that your school is supposed to operate as your guardian while you're there, and for them to just not know where a student is, that's weird to me. I think it's important to note that I completely understand his parents' unwillingness to accept the hypothesis issued by police. As Black parents in a town that is predominantly white in the South, with a police force that's predominantly white, I can completely understand why they may question their decision to rule it an accidental death so quickly. And there was also, it's important to note that there was blood found at the scene, but it was not his blood. They said that it had been there for a really long time. So none of this satisfied the parents for very obvious reasons, so they decided to hire a private investigator in order to conduct their own investigation into the death of Kendrick. Upon doing so Kendrick did have an autopsy, and after the autopsy, he was sent to the funeral home, and then he was buried. So in order for this private investigator to get a better idea, his body was exhumed, and they wanted a second autopsy done. Well, upon opening the body, the investigator discovered that his body had been stuffed with newspaper, and all of his organs were just gone. And the story about where his organs are has been incredibly inconsistent. We'll get to that. But this investigation also prompted them to find out that the coroner was not notified for 6 hours upon the discovery of Kendrick's body. So his body sat there for 6 hours in a school before a coroner was even contacted. Like, it wasn't like he was getting there. He was not contacted for 6 hours. There was a theory that Kendrick had died elsewhere and his body had been moved into that mat, and the fact that the coroner was not notified for 6 hours, and then when he did get there, he also corroborated that theory that he did not think that his body was in the place that he died, that his body had been moved. So according to this investigator, he says that if Kendrick had died of asphyxiation in this space upside down, all of the blood would have began to rush to his head and he would have begun to bleed out of his orifices. And that would mean that the blood would have dripped out and fallen onto the shoes that were found underneath of him. Like I said, there was a pool of blood underneath him, but it was deemed to not be his blood, and the shoes had no blood on them at all. So it's just very odd that if he died in that way, why was there no blood pulling out of his orifices? That second investigator actually determined that the cause of death was probably a blunt force trauma. And a very problematic decision that the family made was to release the photographs of Kendrick after his death. And a lot of people noted, and I noticed this as well, the first thing that I said when I was investigating this and saw this was that this reminds me of Emmett Till, because it was very much the same type of idea that this mom wanted people to see what her son looked like when he died. I will not be putting the pictures up because that's not what this video is about, but they are very powerful to look at from that lens, that they wanted these pictures out there. They wanted people to see what had happened. And I think the pictures tell a very disturbing tale. I don't think it looks like he died from asphyxiation in a mat, if I'm being completely honest. It looks like he was beat up. So concerning the missing organs, which was a huge mystery and a huge point of contention with many true crime sleuths in terms of this case, there seemed to be a huge miscommunication between the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, the funeral home, and the family. So GBI claims that Kendrick's organs were intact when they sent him to the funeral home. Funeral home claims that when they received the body, the organs were missing, so they stuffed him with newspaper. So just for clarification, the funeral home is not who would have performed the autopsy. That would have been the coroner's office. So what they would have done in an ideal scenario is they would have performed their autopsy, and generally they don't just put the organs back into the body, especially in a case like this where there's possibility that the body was disfigured. They would put them in a bag, and then the funeral home could put them back, from what I understand, or they could stuff it with paper or embalm them. I'm not 100% sure, but the funeral home did not receive these organs. And this is a very uncommon practice. Generally, funeral homes do not stuff bodies with newspaper, but it's not technically illegal, is what the Georgia Bureau of Investigation continues to clarify, that the funeral home did nothing illegal. So it was eventually said that Kendrick's organs were properly disposed of, like they were incinerated by GBI, but it was another report said that they were preserved for the family. So regardless, I'm confident in saying that the organs were lost, and either lost or purposefully lost. So the last piece of evidence that was very alarming to me was the security footage at the school, because I mentioned in the beginning of the video that Kendrick is seen entering the gym, but he's never seen coming out. But there are gaps in the footage, and what the school claims is that the cameras are motion activated. So what that means is if someone walks past the cameras, they turn on, but if not, they turn off, and they don't save unless, or even record unless they are triggered by some sort of motion. However, there are blind spots in the gym, which is like, of course there are. He was the only person seen going into the gym, but there's a 2-hour gap between when Kendrick is seen going into the gym and when the next time the camera flips on. But that's just weird to me. In a school of 3,000 students, and it was common practice for people to leave things in their lockers, you're trying to tell me that no one triggered the camera for 2 hours? That seems weird to me. So to me, like, nothing is adding up, and it sucks that the family has to put all of their eggs into this system that just has failed them over and over. So the most critical part of all this has been the lawsuits that the family has filed. They filed a number of lawsuits, and I think this is where a lot of people have been very critical of the family. But I mean, to me, and again, this is just opinion, I think if they were a white family, this would have been viewed a lot differently, and their lawsuits would have been viewed a lot differently. So they filed a wrongful death suit to the school, and they actually worked with high power attorneys from the NAACP, and they also sued the funeral home as well for negligence, and they filed a number of other lawsuits. The sad part is there's also been a ton of counter lawsuits towards the Johnson family for defamation, because they have not kept quiet about this case, which, if that was your child, I don't think you would either. The part to me that is odd, and I will say that, like, I don't have an opinion on whether this is murder or not. I'm not an investigator. I don't have all the information. There's not a whole lot of information out there, to be completely honest. But at worst, this is murder. But at best, this is a school that really, really neglected their student and really failed their student, because ultimately they were the ones responsible for Kendrick during those 8 hours that he was in school. And for him to just go missing inside the school and for them not to know where he is, that's alarming. And I think if you're a parent, that should alarm you. I think if you were in this situation, you would be suing the school as well. I will say that there was a point in my research where I began to kind of like ultimately just wish the family had handled one thing different. And again, it's not up to me, and I don't have all the information. And I'm not questioning the family or their grief or anything like that. And I don't know how it should have been handled. But another student has been openly blamed for the death of Kendrick. And the family apparently has been very vocal about this person. And the reason that this case is even becoming reopened is because allegedly this person put out a tape where they confessed to the murder of Kendrick. And I'm not going to play that or anything because it's still being investigated. A lot of this has stemmed from an altercation that this student had with Kendrick. But the problem that I have with it is, from reports, it seems like this altercation happened many years ago, and after the specific altercation, they were fine afterwards and went on. I don't know if they were necessarily friends, but they went on to be civil with one another. So it doesn't really seem like they continued to have issues after this specific incident. The other issue with this supposed confession is that it was sold to the family, which means that there was financial incentive for this person to make a fake tape, or whoever it was that sent it or whatever. So it is a high likelihood that it's a hoax, but there's been a lot of sensationalized headlines claiming that it's real or whatever. And I'm happy that it's prompted the district attorney to take a closer look at this case, because I think it was the district attorney that decided to reopen it. But I just don't necessarily believe that that's the direction that they should go in. So beyond all of the issues that I already discussed, I do highly believe that if Kendrick had been a white football player as opposed to a black basketball player, he may have played football too. I don't know what all the sports that he played. He was described as someone who was very athletic and a nice, quiet boy. But I think if this was a white football player, this case would have gone totally different. It would have not been ruled an accident within 24 hours. The second the 911 call was reported, someone would have been out to the school looking for Kendrick if he had been white. I honestly believe that, especially coming from a place like Georgia. Georgia just has more restrictive voting laws. They're still trying to repress votes, I mean, in black communities. So like, that's the type of place we're talking about in 2021. So I can only imagine that in 2013 it wasn't much better, you know? And I also believe that the family has been slandered so much, and I honestly believe if they were a white family, people would not judge them for the lawsuits. People would not judge them for speaking out. They would be viewed totally differently if they were a white family. And the saddest part to me about this whole thing is that when I do these, I really try to give people a well-rounded view of the victims, because ultimately that's what these stories are about. It's not about the bullshit. It's not about all the other stuff in between. It's about the victims, and it's about the people that died. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of information out there about Kendrick. The only things I could find out was that he was an athlete and he was quiet, and no one really seemed to have a negative word to say about him one way or another. But unfortunately, we don't have a better picture of him, and it's sad because he's just another person that died too soon, and we don't know what happened because we're so distracted by everything else, and it's just so sad. So that's really all I have for today. In terms of theories, I just never know what to say because it's not a case that I feel strongly about in terms of like what I think happened. Could it be an accident? Sure. It doesn't seem like that, but it's just such an odd case, and there's just so many people involved that I do think the police are trying to cover something up, and I do think the school was trying to cover something up. But, you know, were they just trying to cover up negligence, or were they trying to cover up something bigger? I don't know. And I would be interested to know because that would obviously make a huge difference. But I don't know. So, you know, regardless, I think the school does deserve to be held accountable for not knowing where their student is during the school day. But other than that, I'm not really sure. And I wish that I knew. And I hope that one day this gets solved. And we can definitively know the truth. But unfortunately, I don't know. There haven't been any updates since March. But as usual, I'll try to remember to link everything down below. If there's any petitions to sign or anything like that, I'll link those as well. If I talked during this video, it's because I bit my tongue in my sleep. So I'm having trouble talking. My tongue is like swollen. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Tell me your theories down below and leave any comments with any future cases that you want me to look up. But thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.